Hello, my name is Starla Henderson with Fronter House Quilts, and today we're going to talk about how I arranged the background of my quilt, how I put it all together. You've been making over these last few weeks all these different components. You've made your vase, that was the one we just did. There are 3 sets of flowers of 3 apiece. There's your sunflowers, your periwinkles, your little dogwoods, and then all the leaves and the stems. So we've got all of these pieces made, and all of them appliqued together with the papers still in them. And now we need to decide how we're going to put it on our background. Now, the first thing you've got to do is cut your background fabric. And I cut mine at about 23, let me see here, let me just measure real quick, double check my numbers. I'm one of those people, if I'm going to make a mistake, it's going to be at numbers. Yeah, you go ahead and do it at 24 by 16 because it's going to be cut down to 22 by 14. 22 and a half by 14 and a half because you've got to add your, that's raw edges. And if you cut it bigger, 24 by 16, that's going to give you room to square up later. But you're going to take your different components with the papers still in them, and of course mine's already on my quilt. But they're, I mean, you can touch yours. They are little pieces that you can just lay all over it and decide how you want it to go. And what I did was I took my original sketch, which I'm going to get right now. The way I did this is I took my original sketch, the pattern, and I just looked at it. And I thought, here's my pattern. Kind of got it all glued together here. And I looked at it, and I laid out my background fabric on the table beside it. And I basically just eyeballed it. Now, if you're not comfortable with just, you know, arranging things the way that they appear on the pattern, you have to be exact. Then lay your fabric onto your light box where you can see underneath, see the lines, and you can place your pieces a little bit more accurately, a little bit more precisely where they go in accordance to the pattern. And that may just be more comfortable for you. But with this technique, what is so cool is you've got all of these pieces made, and you can put them anywhere on here you want. You could make it all sunflowers if you want, or all periwinkles. You don't have to rely on what is just on this pattern. You can, or doing it exactly that way. You can add, you can take away. To me, it frees you up to make it more uniquely yours, which I think is just cool. But I took it and I laid my vase down because I needed to know where that was going to go. Let's see, pull you back in the shot here. There we go. And then from there, I took my stems and laid them down in approximately the way they were going to go. There's 2, 3, 4 stems, and they all go in kind of different directions. The one thing you need to remember, though, is that when this is all said and done, and we'll talk about this next week, you're going to cut out the back of behind every one of these pieces to pull out the paper. So, for instance, in this line here, let me get it where you can see it. This line here, it goes all the way up into these other flowers. And if I were doing needle turn applique where I didn't have to take the back out, I would just take one stem and run it all the way up. You can't do that with this technique, because if you don't knot your thread and make a knot and tie off where your pieces that are going to lay on top of it start, then when you cut that back out, you're going to lose some of your stitches. They're going to come out. So instead of one long line, you're going to have to lay it out and measure, and this was going to be a short piece here, then there'll be a short piece here, and a short piece here, and so on. And so you're going to be laying down these little short little stems in places. Same thing with this one right here. You're going to have a short piece here, and then this short piece here. This one, you can just applique on top of this. You don't have to worry about it. You just won't cut that part of the stem, and you can just pull it out from underneath. It's such a small thing, this is practically the seam allowance. I didn't have to worry with that. But I laid out my stems, laid them out in the short little pieces, and then I laid my flowers around until all my edges were covered and it looked the way I wanted, and then I pinned everything in place. And then, using the same stitch that I've shown you, that you went around each one of these petals, each one of the petals of every flower, that's the same stitch. You are going to start appliquing this all on down. And that's all there is to it. Now, next week we will talk about the process that I use whenever I remove my papers. And I've been playing with this because that's something I've not done, is cut the back out of my quilt until I started using this technique. Even when I hand quilted, I left my back in place. I just quilted through both layers. And so, because it's not something I'm used to, it makes me just a little bit more nervous. And so I'm really playing with it to find the easiest and the best way that I can to make this work. So, but for now, that is how I arranged and put my pieces on here. And again, I just think it's fun because I don't have to be quite so exacting, and it gives me just a little bit more freedom, a little bit more room in there for my own creativity, and I hope it will for you too. But this is Starla Henderson with Front House Quilts. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next week whenever we start pulling our papers out.